Hey guys, what's going on? Today I'm going to be showing you my homemade Evil Mortar deck that is honestly dominating every single opponent I run into. Currently I'm using the Ice Spirit in this version, but you can also replace it with the Electro Spirit like I occasionally do, and I will be in these games. It does help more with Swarm and Graveyard. But anyway, enough of that, let's get right into it. So all of these are going to be Ultimate Champion games, and I'm going to be showing you guys the replays because my recording glitched while I was recording, and I didn't realize it until afterwards. So I'm just going to be showing you all of these games in retrospect. Starting off with this game, I have no clue what he's playing, and I actually did misclick the skeletons at the bridge there because I was fiddling with my recording settings there, so that was an accident, but I probably would have cycled them anyway towards the back, so it doesn't really matter. A lot of the time it is a good play to cycle the Furnace in the back too, because getting to that Furnace Evo was so important, and it turned out to be extremely important in this matchup because it's Lava Hound. And to be honest, I should not have cycled my Zappies in the back. Cycling both your air cards is very risky, but I kind of got the hint that he was playing Lava Hound by the fact that he was willingly taking damage and running Valkyrie. It's a pretty dead giveaway at that point. I go in for a Giant Skeleton on the left there because I want to put a pressure so he can't go in with the Lava Hound, or at least he can't fully commit to it, right? Because it's 4 Elixir he could have used to push alongside of it, but it actually ends up kiting 2 of the minions, and then by cycling back to our Furnace, we're able to clean up this defense with, honestly, not too much damage. The Zappies on the left get a little bit of chip damage to keep us in the game. It's all pretty negligible, but we take about 1,200 damage here. So we go in for a Mortar to try to punish, and my worst fears did come true seeing the Spirit Empress here. And you'll see that I had the opportunity to go in for the Zappies here to full defend, but I chose not to because our Furnace is a few cards out of cycle, and I wanted to keep my Zappies in hand. So we end up willingly taking the damage over on the left side, but it ends up being fine. We go for the Skeletons to take out this Valkyrie, and I just let it hit the tower because it turns out to do the exact same-ish damage that we've already taken on the left. So it turns out it doesn't matter too much. We're kind of at a standstill here. I don't really want to make the move because we have both of our air cards in cycle. Luckily, when we do, he goes in for a Lava Hound in the back. And I would always recommend you split your Zappies. If you play your Zappies down the same lane, they will get spelled down every single time without fail. Never play your Zappies on the same lane unless you know your opponent does not have a spell to deal with them. We go for the Furnace. He actually does turn out to have Lightning, which he was holding for the whole game, so I got a little bit worried here. We had to cycle back to our Zappies ASAP, but luckily because we played them so early, we were able to get back to them. And in this instance, I am playing them all in the same spot because I know that he is running arrows and lightning, and neither of them deal with the Zappies very well. We can go with the Furnace to clear up this defense, and then I immediately punish with a Mortar in the opposite lane so we can't keep up the pressure. He goes up for a Goblin Cage to tank for it, which is honestly really well played. I went for Skeletons trying to tank for Spirit Empress. It doesn't work out, but they end up actually buying me time, so then I can get Zappies down to tank for the Spirit Empress, but it doesn't matter. His Evil Valkyrie does tank for the Mortar fully, and I would have honestly played my Furnace 1 tile lower, but it turned out to play into my favor because it actually did snipe off the Empress. So looking here, it's honestly pretty dark. I tried to go in for a Bar Barrel to put up some pressure, but I ended up just feeding into his push. So that was a pretty bad Bar Barrel. I at least should have gone opposite lane. I went for the Furnace high here because I don't want it to get lightninged. At least I don't want the tower to get lightninged alongside it. It ends up getting zapped regardless. So our tower's down to 1,500 health, even less actually. So both of our towers are almost the exact same. So I know it's going to come down to the wire here, right? It's whoever can play the offense better. I go for another split Zappies in the back so I can cycle back to them when he starts his push. I go for a Furnace here because I want to try to get to one more Evo before this game ends, and I'm also keeping it alive by using the Electro Spirit there. I go in for a Giant Skeleton here because I want to take the Spirit Empress. That card just does so much damage. It is absolutely crazy. And we trade Lightnings there. He didn't know I had Lightning at that point, I don't believe, so kind of hitting him with the surprise there made it so he zapped our troops, but we zapped his troops and the tower, which gave us a really good life lead there, which is super important when the game's as close as it is. He's doing a really good job tanking. It's honestly weird how much ground presence his deck has with the Spirit Empress, Goblin Cage, Valkyrie, and Guard, so it's pretty hard to break through with the Mortar, but it just applied a ton of pressure. We had a really good Lightning here, plus the Mortar locked on. I don't know how. The bomb takes out the Spirit Empress. Actually, it doesn't, but it doesn't matter. We take the win against Lava Hound. Pretty easy matchup, generally. I'd say it's about like 60-40 in our favor, but yeah, I'll see you guys in the next match. Okay, in the match here, I wish you guys could have gotten my live reaction to this game. It was honestly pretty insane. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. It looks foreign. I'm not even going to try and embarrass myself. Again, I think the safest play in this deck is to go in for a Furnace, especially when your Zappies are in hand. It's never really a bad idea to cycle your Furnace because the pressure it puts on. And when I saw Wizard, I was a little bit confused because sometimes people use decks like 2.6 and replace the Wizard, replace it with the Wizard, the Musketeer, or maybe this is like a Hogquake deck, so I didn't really know what to expect. But as soon as he just jammed the bridge here, I got a little bit worried. I go for Giant Skeleton because I want to tank all the rockets, and then I actually go for a mortar because I'm hoping it hits the wizard with the mortar shell, and it actually does. The Bar Barrel does a pretty good job DPSing down the Goblin Machine, and the bomb finishes off the Dark Prince and one stage of the Elixir Golem, and we do take a ton of damage here. Honestly, I didn't expect to take 1,500 damage from this, but considering what it could have been, 1,500 is honestly a pretty big win here. And not only is this guy playing E-Golem, he's also blowing raspberries at me, so I'm like, I need to win this game, right? It was honestly a pretty big, must-win situation for me. So I go for my Furnace here to cycle to the Evo, because again, it is so broken. You just have to abuse the Evo whenever you can. That's how you're going to push in this meta. I'm surprised we didn't even run into it in this video. Spoiler alert. We go for a mortar here. It's a little bit risky knowing when he has Goblin Machine to go in for a mortar, and it didn't turn out that good, but it did do the job I wanted it to in shattering the Evo Wizard's shield, right? That's all I really wanted it to do. We can go for a Giant Skeleton and Bar Barrel here. He does a really good job tanking for the Wizard, though, which means our Giant Skeleton goes down to the bridge. And I could go in for Skeletons to try to help it, but I just let it die because there's no point in trying to... We're not going to get any counter push out of it, so there's no point in going with it. Keeping on with the game here, we're kind of at a standstill, and I know we're about even in Elixir, which is why I'm not trying to go too aggressive, but it gets to a point where you have to make a move, especially against E-Golem when you're down 1,500 damage. So I do end up cycling to the Mortar, knowing that his Goblin Machine and Wizard are out of hand. He can't really hit our Mortar with anything, unless he jams the bridge, which is never a good idea. And also at this point, I kind of got the hint. I didn't know that he didn't have a big spell yet, but I figured that he would have played it by then. And we can go for a Lightning there. It takes out everything, and we get a ton of damage. And I just want to showcase how absolutely broken the Evo Clanker still is. But it uses its Fire Spirits to tank for a rocket from the Goblin Machine. And look at this. It is at half health. Okay, the Mortar takes out about half the tower. 2 Fire Spirits hit. 3 Fire Spirits hit. He's hitting the tower. A 4th Fire Spirit hits. Almost a 5th one. And he takes him down to 500 health. The Giant Skeleton is a brick wall. Nothing's going to push through it. So I can just put it down on the right and then focus on the left side here. We can go for low Zappies because I really don't want them getting hit by the Wizard and Valkyrie. And they do a pretty good job. We do a good job of keeping them alive. And the Wizard is really shredding through everything here. But surrounding it with Zappies, does a great job of dealing with it. We go for high mortar here because we wanted to attack his low health tower and defend the E-Golem at the same time. We weren't in lightning range yet, but the mortar hits the tower after the Night Witch walks into the range, and we can just hit a lightning. He actually gives up here. I would say beatdown in general, both the Lava Hound deck and the E-Golem deck are pretty good matchups. The Zappies and Furnace combo are just so broken. If you guys haven't tried the Zappies after the buff, you definitely should. They are broken. Regardless, I will see you guys in the next match. Here we go. Keeping the general theme with beatdown here, we run into Pekka Goblin Giant. Everyone hates this deck. It terrorizes the meta to this day. And I kind of knew he had it from the second we saw the Royal Chef. And the Pekka first play 13 seconds into the game. So we match it with a Furnace in the back. Again, just generally the safest first play. Gets a lot of passive value, which is the best thing you can ask for. Our hand's a little awkward here, considering that our Zappies aren't immediately in hand. So we go for a defensive mortar here. It just helps with the DPS. It's not always the best thing you can do, but it does just occasionally help clutch up some defenses. We actually do tank for the Fisherman with some Skeletons for a little bit, which buys us some time, and we eventually get the Zappies down, which do a great job of taking out the Pekka and the Fisherman, ending up taking 0 damage from the initial push. So we know what he's playing. We know what to watch out for. I was afraid of him running Lightning. That was my biggest fear of this match, because it does make stuff a lot harder, but it turns out that he wasn't, now that I know that in retrospect. Regardless of the spells he's using, though, we know we're going to be on defense this whole game, and this is a perfect example of that. He goes in for a Goblin Giant, just right at the bridge with the Goblin Machine, and we play the Giant Skeleton high enough so the Goblin Machine isn't sniping the tower, and then we go for a Bar Barrel for some DPS onto the Goblin Giant. And even though at this point we're down like 5 Elixir, we're up presence on the map. We have a half-health Giant Skeleton and a whole-health Furnace, so I know that we can actually go in for a Mortar here, despite us being down so much Elixir. And he goes for a Pekka. And this is where I kind of thought I lost the game. I could have gone in for an Evo Furnace, but I prefer to go in for the Zappies here. They do a much better job stalling. And then also going in for the Zappy, or the Electro Spirit at the last second, stops the Fisherman from pulling them a little bit earlier. Bar Barrel will help snipe that off. Skeletons help kill the Pekka in just before it heals up. It does kill the Zappy, but it doesn't heal up. We actually get away unscathed from that, besides from some arrows. So we got very lucky, but we are still down 100 damage, though. And I know at this point we're about even in Elixir, so it's kind of hard to go in here, especially knowing he has such an offensive deck, and he does control the pace here. Because if I go in for an Evo Mortar without him doing anything, he'll just go for a Goblin Machine. So we wait till he goes for it, then immediately go down the opposite lane. He goes in for a Pekka, so at least we're splitting up his push here a little bit. We, of course, go for the split zappies here. They'll deal with the Pekka and the Goblin Machine. And he actually goes in for a bomber, but using an Electro Spirit here, we're able to have it chain on to the bomber, which allows the mortar to one-shot it. And I accidentally let the Goblin Machine hit the tower, which it hits the Zappy and splashes the tower, but I want you guys to look very closely at this. I did not notice this in the moment. He kites off my Giant Skeleton with a Goblin Giant. I didn't think much of it, but he plays a Fisherman Low, which pulls my Giant Skeleton straight into his tower. It is insane. We have 4 Zappies playing defense here. He spells it off, but it doesn't matter. There's a whole Giant Skeleton on his tower. The Evo Furnace bails us out, plus a Bar Barrel, and he just can't come back from that. Absolutely insane blunder from our opponent, going for a Fisherman in the back and knowing we have Giant Skeleton. We take a win against Beatdown like 3 times in a row. This deck is just a Beatdown destroyer. It's crazy. On to our final match of the day against Gavin. This isn't a Beatdown deck, but it is probably the weirdest deck I've ever seen in my entire life. I was going to not include it because of how off-meta his deck is, but I just had to. Just look at his bar right now. Look at his bar. Look at the 4 cards he has. It's insane. What is this? So I originally thought it was a bait deck, which is why I went for a mortar here so aggressively, right? Because against bait, you want to be aggressive with mortar, but he plays a Royal Giant. So I go for Zappies here at the bridge. If he had Fireball, I probably would have lost here. I probably should have been a little bit more careful, but it turned out okay. They take out the Royal Giant very well, and neither of us get any damage for the first interaction. I wish you guys could have seen my face when I saw him play this Prince, though. We saw a Goblin Barrel, a Royal Giant, and a Prince in the same deck. I thought I was in mid-ladder, genuinely. I was, like, tweaking out. But it doesn't matter. Zappies do so much damage. Like, it's sneaky. Even though they're on his side of the tower, they take out, like, a third of this Prince. They provide so much value. We go for some Skeletons to protect our Furnace, because keeping that thing alive, it makes it so much more valuable. And I feel comfortable enough going in for a Bar Barrel here because we have our E-Spirit in cycle. Even though it is 1 level low, making it not very good against Goblin Barrels, I kind of just relied on it anyway. And I did play the Giant Skeleton in a weird position. I didn't realize he had played the Bats until it was too late, but the E-Spirit bails us out. And it honestly turns out to be a very solid defense. We have a mortar set up, so we can't really go in for anything. And I wish I could have recorded my reaction for this as well. A Skarmy. I swear to God, this is the most random deck ever. I think if I went to 8,000 trophies, I would find more normal decks than what this guy has. But at the moment, we're kind of at a standstill. I go for the classic cycling of the Furnace. And at this point, I didn't know if this guy was cooking up some crazy push because he gives me the good luck. It seems sarcastic, though, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. He goes in for a Princess to snipe off my Furnace, which honestly made a lot of sense. And I go for the Bar Barrel a little bit too early, but it does end up taking out the Princess regardless. And we just let our Furnace, we let it die. There's no point in trying to protect it. It actually does take out the Dark Golem, which is really good. And then we can cycle our Zappies here in the back because very good cycle card, blocks up both the lanes. And because he Mega Knights in the back, I know he can't afford a Royal Giant, so we just go for the Evo Mortar, right? There's nothing bad that can really happen of it, but he decides to go all in. He's really trying to tower trade this. I could have gone for an E-Spirit onto the right side, but instead I hold it in case he goes in for some Bats. So I end up just letting the mortar go down, and that 1 elixir would honestly turn out really helpful there because he goes in for Royal Giant Bats combo, and look at this. Look how much damage these Zappies do. They stun lock the Royal Giant, and it ends up getting 0 damage onto my tower. We go for a mortar to block for it, and we get a great defense. The mortar's wailing at his tower while simultaneously defending the Royal Giant, and that's honestly one of the best parts of the mortar. We can go for a Giant Skeleton to block for the Mega Knight there, let the Skarmy take care of our Zappies, no point in trying to defend it. We go for a Furnace to hit the Mega Knight, but the Fire Spirit jumps onto the Skarmy, and then we can go for some Skeletons to snipe off the Dark Goblin. And at this point, I basically know this game's wrapped up, but against Mega Knight, Royal Giant, Evo Bats, Prince, like such a weird aggressive deck, you can never be too sure that the game's over because they can easily take out your entire tower in one push. So he goes for an Evo Mega Knight at the bridge. I let it jump onto my mortar first because I want it to I want the Zappies to come back. If I go for the Giant Skeleton in front of the mortar, it would have stayed into the left lane, and the Zappies would not have come back to help with the Mega Knight. Go for a Furnace just to take care of these Evo Bats. And not only were we up Elixir before we played the mortar, but we were also up so much presence on the board, and at this point, I know it's over. He can't go for his Royal Giant because there's just so much DPS on the board. The mortar locks on the tower, and we get another win. This deck is so broken on defense, and the counter pushes are just so strong, guys. With that, at the time of recording, this is our rank that we're currently working with. I'm going to slip a little bit down as the days progress, but yeah, honestly, super fun deck, super defensive, and it just destroys beatdown. You got to give it a try, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace out.